Selectperson's meeting for Tuesday, August 6th. Starting here at 7 p.m. It's in person and hybrid, and we have Mary Ann from the board on Zoom with us this evening. Tonight's agenda will be call to order and pledge of allegiance, resignation and appointments. We'll have some more discussion about that. Reports will be managers and financial. Communications will be an RSU 16 assessment. Under new business, we have the excise tax refund request, an MSW hauling RFP, and our 2025 tax commitment and payables. And with that, if we could do the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So let's begin with the top line for Cindy Robbins, resignation from CDC. I'll entertain a motion.
I make the motion that we accept the resignation of Cindy Robbins from the CEDC with regret.
I second that.
Thank you. Discussion?
I just want to say I've known Cindy for many, many years, and I know she's been really active on that board. She's been a real spearhead of it, and it's going to be hard for somebody to fill her shoes, and we will miss her.
Echo that things, and I'm sure that she'll stay engaged and involved a lot with all the things that we do within the town and the community. You understand?
Right. John DeSantis.
Yes.
Stan Tetman.
Yes.
Steve Robinson.
Yes.
Mary Ann Hawks.
Yes.
Lisa Elby.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, you have accepted the resignation of Cindy Robbins from the CEDC.
Okay, the next item is appointments. And just one of the things in realizing that we've got 12 candidates that applied for the applications or whatever, that we would not bring them in and do 12 interviews this evening. And just with the discussion of it, felt that we should, right now as a board, talk about the launch of this committee and what we want their mission statement to be, if you can use that language, and get through some of the logistics of how we want that committee to be run. Would it be chaired by somebody on that committee and they would vote for? Is the committee 12 members? All of those types of things. And then probably schedule ourselves to have some sort of launch with them and have us attend. It wouldn't be an official select board meeting, but we would have a chance to meet them face to face. And we can then do the actual official nominations to the committee, post that kickoff, and when people understand what the real expectation is going to be and what they can expect it to be, which I think is part of what would occur in the negotiation. We kind of have that knowledge, and we can't claim that knowledge. So I just want to open it up for discussions. Mary Ann, do you want to start with thoughts?
Sure, absolutely. So first off, I just wanted to thank everyone within the community that applied and submitted the volunteer form. I think it's just wonderful that we had so many people step forward, and just looking over everyone's background, I mean, it's just really impressive, some of the experience and background. So we have some really great people to choose from. And I think that kind of what I envision is this would be a real, self-supporting committee. It'll have bylaws and be structured like any of our other committees. And I think that it would be helpful to kind of put that back on the committee to decide for themselves what the objective should be and what that mission statement should be. I do love the idea that they come to a select board meeting and kind of introduce themselves, and we kind of kick it off then, and then really leave it up to the committee to develop those items as kind of like their first real mission is to get that established.
Mary Ann, since you've had the most, looked into this, I think, more than any of us, I'm just wondering, in other communities, do you know how many people they had on a committee, or do you have any feelings of how many people you think should be on the committee?
Yeah, so I've looked into this, and I've had conversations with a few folks, including former town manager who's actually working in a town that's done something like this, and they actually have a network being built for them right now. That smaller is better. So you don't want to have a committee that's too large, because that could actually kind of hinder progress and decision making. Just leave it up to the committee to decide, you know, if there's an event or something where they need extra volunteers or they need to set up extra meetings or special meetings, that leave it up to them on that. But in terms of the core committee, it's been recommended no more than 3 to 5 members. Some committees for smaller towns I've seen have a broadband committee of only 3 members. And several that I know of have 5 members, but I haven't seen any that are larger than that. So my thought is maybe start with 5 and see how that goes.
And do you have any thoughts, because the resume, so to speak, of what they put in, there's some really well-qualified people for the little bit of technology that I know. And there's some, a couple of the people are just interested in being on the committee just to have their own input, even though they don't have maybe some of the technical knowledge. Do you have any thoughts of, how many people should all be technical people that really know what they're doing, or do you have any thoughts?
So that's a really good question. I've personally given some thought as to this and looked over the resume. So my first thought process here is that anyone with a technical background, IT, is wonderful to have, because there will be some technical conversations. I think it will be helpful for any member of that committee to have at least a base knowledge of what they're dealing with, because they will be working with potential vendors and partners and internet service providers and reviewing contracts and coming up with potential RFPs. So, it would be helpful to have that base knowledge. Anyone with a broadband background is great. And I also was looking at a candidate who has a marketing background. So one of the aspects of what the committee will be doing is community awareness, being able to promote, fiber in the area, getting maybe even people to kind of pre-sign up for service. So there will be a marketing component to this to generate awareness and educate the community on what this could mean for them. So I think getting, a good wide background is really wonderful. And there are a couple people that, as you said, Stan, they want to get involved and they want to help. And I'm sure that we could absolutely use them. Their input's going to be really helpful as we move forward. Someone's raising their hand. William, I recognize your name as someone that applied.
I didn't get my resume in yet. Is there a place for me to send that for you guys? Because I actually work for an MSP. I'm a senior systems engineer, and I'm at the top of the game here on the MSP side.
I believe we
Yeah,
got,
I actually could go ahead.
I believe we got your, we didn't ask for resumes, they were talking about the, I'm looking for it in our packet, I'm sorry.
He's the third one down.
And we got your form that you submitted. We don't need a resume. When I say I was looking at folks' background, I just did a little bit of reconnaissance, looked at, if you have a LinkedIn page, I was looking at that. You're actually one of my top picks, so.
Thank you.
I think your experience would be really valuable.
I'm sorry, Bill, I think that was my fault for using the term resume. I shouldn't have done that.
No problem. I was a little confused, just want to make sure.
So, as Mary Ann knows, I love this idea. So my thought is, I don't know if we want to have all technical people on this board. I'd like to have a little bit of mixture, just an idea of having residents who may not have the experience, and they can learn from those that do, as opposed to getting a bunch of technical people in a room, talking technical stuff, and everybody has a great resume, you got me saying it, has a great background. My thought process is if we go through this, and I'm asking the board, doesn't mean it has to be this way, I'd like to get a mix. Have a little mix, have a little non-experience with experience, because I think the non-experienced people feel the pain of high internet cost, and those technical understand maybe why it's high or why it could not be as expensive. So I think that mix of the input would be a good idea. Just anybody's thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, Mary Ann had alluded to it, that, we've got one person here that had a marketing background.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a matter that we look at it more closely and then meet with the people. And one of the big things that, prior to the meeting, Steve was saying that we've got to make sure that the folks understand what the commitment is. This isn't something that's, you're going to meet once a month for 6 months and that's the end of it. It's a kind of long-term commitment and fairly frequent, based on what we heard from 1 or 2 other towns. So we have to make sure people understand it and they're able to make that commitment.
And to back up, Mary Ann, my mail carrier is part of that town where it's been successful, and he's given me the statistics of not only his town, but his own personal bill, and they own a business as well. So I'm very excited. Any way we can save the residents and all of us money on the internet and get good quality internet would be awesome. So kudos to Mary Ann for even bringing it up to the board. I think it's a great idea.
I was wondering if you could have like alternates as well as board members, and that way if down the line somebody's not able to attend for the whole 2 years, you have some alternates that have been attending right along, and then they could step in and fill a seat if they needed to.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is yes, we're not under any restrictions there. So I think that, and we don't have to answer the question now because it's probably doing the things, that maybe we just simply need to schedule a time that we want to kick this off. And what I'm hearing people say, if I can summarize slightly, is kick people off to get everybody to know, give them the general timeline that we're saying of 2 years at this point, correct? And we've got June 30th, 2026, so we're saying it could be as long as 2 years. I guess we can just, like Mary Ann suggested, let them decide what their frequency of meeting is, and what they would come back to us with a mission and some little structure type of things to it that we could approve, to being how they would go and how they would kick off and how they would operate themselves and what we're expecting from them. I'm personally fine with the idea that they would generate what they think that expectation is. Especially with people with that technical background, it would probably be a good one.
Yeah.
So you guys, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to suggest maybe we let Mary Ann get better. We set since she's likely to be at many of these meetings, we can set up an organizational meeting, the time that works for everybody, and get things going.
That's what I was thinking, set up like an informational meeting where everybody who applied can come, learn a little bit more in person, say, yeah, that's something I want to do, yeah, I can do the time commitment, yeah, that sounds like something I do want to be involved with, give them some more information on it, and get them involved, and then they can set from there where to go.
And we can formally form the committee, and then when they come with bylaw type things or whatever in the mission, then we'll adopt that at the appropriate time.
Yeah.
Because we want to do it right. I don't know that we're rushed into some sort of thing. We want to go about doing it right. Does that make sense, Mary Ann? Are you on board?
Yes, it's music to my ears because there were so many really wonderful folks that applied, and this is a really, it's an important discussion and an important decision, especially this is our first time ever forming a committee in our town around broadband, so I want to make sure that we're making the right decision.
We gotta check with Tom.
So I
Yeah, I
think
mean, and they're public meetings,
people,
so, even if we
Yeah.
don't choose
He's okay.
everybody there, and even being an alternate doesn't mean they can't come and be involved
Correct.
and do, and they're public meetings, so. And I think the only other open question that I would have ultimately, and again, we can answer it down the road, was, obviously, I had the discussion with Mary Ann and stuff. I don't know, Mary Ann could act as a liaison from the board to the committee, and they have their own chair, elect their own chair and vice chair, or how we want to structure that, but that's just something that we need to, at the end of the day, decide upon. Any thoughts on that?
So,
So when we go to this kickoff
Yeah.
meeting, we can say, this is what we've, if there's any decision we're making here about that topic, we can say, this is how it's going to be.
So understanding the rules committee, I mean, me personally, I think if it's possible that Mary Ann can head it up, and I feel more comfortable, she's presented it to the board, she knows what she's talking about, unless there's a conflict of interest. I mean, me personally, I don't have a problem with it. I think having a bunch of people volunteering is amazing, but they have to understand what they're volunteering for, and what's the process, and what it entails. And I think Mary Ann knows all that. Now, I'm not putting that all on you, Mary Ann, but, because you made the suggestion, but I would feel comfortable if she could spearhead that off, and then if she feels comfortable, the board feels comfortable, to hand it off to someone else at that point. Because I think getting this kicked off from someone who knows what they're talking about would probably be a lot easier than going through the process and dragging this out. Because I think everything we know now, right, Mary Ann, everything you know at this point, the process may not take as long as it did in that other town, right? Because we know more of the facts and more of the details, so we may be able to bypass a lot of those things that they ran into in the other town. So, I don't know, that's my thought. Anybody else? Mary Ann?
comments?
I'm game for whatever. I just want to see it successful. And if it came to a point where there's a potential conflict of interest, and I would just recuse myself from any vote.
Mhm.
And if everyone was comfortable with that, then I'm comfortable with that.
I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and ideally, this would be, like I said in the beginning, this would be self-supporting. The committee will elect its chair, vice chair. You may need a treasurer at some point. So it'll run itself, and then they'll come to the board for any approvals and guidance as needed.
Yeah, I don't mean to put you on the spot, Mary Ann, but I think to kick this off, to get it in motion, I think we need someone who understands, such as yourself. And like I said, I don't have a problem with that at all. If you don't, I'm not, ultimately, we all make a decision, but, hopefully you feel comfortable with that.
okay, so we just need to determine the potential date for that.
Yeah, I think,
Is it
like I was saying earlier, maybe we make sure Mary Ann's back up to full speed, and once we know that, then we can, in the near term, get something scheduled. And we were talking earlier that a location, a good location could be fire rescue. It's big enough to hold that many people, and there's no problem getting in. So more to follow on that shortly. And,
Maybe potentially like a Thursday night, because I think fire rescue is Wednesday nights, and we've always got planning and us on Tuesdays, so maybe a Thursday
Yeah,
night.
that's
would be-
probably gonna work, Steve. We just gotta make sure that the Thursday night we pick for fire rescue is open.
Sure.
And I think that'd be perfect.
It just depends. I've got two other organizations that meet on, one of them's meeting tomorrow, and The other one meets the following Thursday. I'll have to see
Okay.
what the meetings are for
Okay.
like September, and I can let you know. I'll send you the
Are we trying
dates.
to do this maybe before the end of this calendar month?
I'd like to do that because you don't want to lose the momentum. People have raised their hand. They want to see some action here. But the reason I'm not signing up for a date right now is when Tom and I were talking earlier, he was saying, no problem. Let me know what day they want to go and I'll make sure that they're clear. So we don't want to double book the training room on them.
And again, maybe Thursday's not the right time, but if I was to target it, it might be like the 22nd. Is that, looking at the calendar, that would be a Thursday, 3 weeks from this, 2 weeks from this Thursday.
No, we wouldn't be doing anything.
August 22nd, so?
The 22nd, I have another Preservation Society board meeting, but you're not going to find everybody who can make it. I could make the 29th, if that works for everybody else, or if the 22nd is better than...
You want to see about the 29th?
Yeah, whatever works for the majority of the people.
Yeah, okay.
I can do it.
I don't want to inconvenience other people, so...
Yeah, and obviously touch base with the candidates and,
6:30?
yeah. So we'll actually have another board meeting technically, potentially with those dates that we're talking about. We'll have another board meeting on the 20th, so we can officially do what, it's not really a board meeting, I guess.
You can do it on the 3rd, if you want to accept people. Here are the 5 we nominated.
Then we'll set it on the 3rd, I agree.
That would work.
Yeah.
See about that, this meeting.
Okay. Anything else on this topic? Marianne, anything else you think of?
No, I'm excited. I think it's a great idea.
Great, no, I think having the kickoff thing and doing that and getting them to do is the right way to do this as opposed to just nominating names.
Yeah.
And stuff, so, cool. Let's move on to manager's report, please.
Okay, the town manager report for 6 August. Pardon me. The transfer station improvement project, the engineering and design work is now complete. We're putting the application together for planning board review. We hope to get before then soon. The EPA grant period, we extended that. We applied to extend it to September of next year because it's just taking longer to get this going than we thought. I don't think that's going to be an issue. We completed a draft operations manual for the transfer station. That's required for the minor permit revision. And DEP has reviewed that and made a couple of minor edits, so we're good on that. We need a couple of documents to insert, but that is an important step in getting that minor permit revision going. The municipal park, the site plan needs review and approval from the planning board. We know what the list of things that they were interested in seeing are, and we expect that to occur this fall. On the library expansion project, the stormwater, that's going to be the first thing that people see happening outside the library. And the work's going to be done later this summer and early fall. Our Public Works Director and I have been talking about certain components that may need to be altered in order to work properly. But that's not a big deal. And we're ordering some of those components now. But that'll be coming up soon. The conference room renovation, that's inside the conference room in the basement. For those that aren't familiar with it, contractors for electrical and sheet rock, we've hired them. The demo work is complete. The electrical work is now complete. And the sheet rock we put up in late August, early September, and we'll paint that. The idea is to put an electric fireplace in there, keep the table, put some new chairs as well, a big screen TV with Zoom capability, and let people use that for remote work. And people are already using it. Before we started the demo work, there was one gentleman down there that was actually conducting Zoom job interviews, so we were glad to help him do that. The design, the various construction documents and details are being finalized. We're on track for fire marshal and code office review to start later this month. Per the schedule, the project will go out to bid late October. The reason there's that long timeline is not that the architect is not complete in his work, it's the time it takes the fire marshal's office to review the project. It's a long lead time. Paving, Rang Hill Road paving's done. We're doing some ditching and other minor work, but that looks pretty good. The Lewis and Junction Road, the shim's complete. The Auburn Water and Sewers adjusted their service connections, and we expect paving to be done a little later this month, and then we'll report on the other roads that are going to be done as part of the summer paving plan. And the municipal audit is going to take place later this week. And pending any questions, that's the manager report.
Question, what's a municipal audit?
We have a audit firm that takes a look at our all the books and will issue a report.
Okay.
And that's a requirement. We're very pleased that we're getting the audit started in August. Our financial year just ended in the end of June. So our finance department's done great work making sure everything's complete so the audit can move forward. That wasn't always the case. And we'll look forward to receiving that audit in a timely fashion as well.
Very nice. And I'm assuming shims on the side of the road is when they do that kind of skimming back of...
The shim, so with Lewiston Junction Road is what's called a shim and pave. So the first bit of asphalt you see go down is a thinner layer, which is designed to fill in the depressions and make everything level.
Okay.
And then following that, there's the paved section, which is,
Okay.
that goes on top.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't know that when I started here either.
A question on the stormwater. It's only because of everything that's happening now with weather. Do we know how much water, how much rain that would theoretically handle? And I'm realizing there are going to be storms that, you know, nobody can plan for, or that you just can't build for because they're so relatively rare.
I don't have a gallon answer for you, but I know that the engineer, when they were considering the design, had to plan for like worst case scenario, and I'm not sure if they pick 100-year storm or something like that, but it's able to handle a pretty robust amount of rain. So I think we'll be okay.
Any other questions? We have a visitor that walked in. Want to come up and say hi?
Hi, Betty.
Hi. I only want to say hi and congratulations.
Just
My name is Betty Ann Sheets. I'm actually from Auburn, but I'm running for State Senate to represent Auburn, New Gloucester, Poland, and Durham. So I wanted to congratulate the new members of the Selectmen Board and congratulate you on the new tables and introduce myself. Thank you very
Great.
much.
Thank you.
I'm
Thanks,
here to
Betty.
listen and learn. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Betty.
Okay, we can move on to financials.
Yep, we're 5 weeks into the year, 9.62 expended. Won't spend much time because we've only spent about 10% of the budget thus far, but no issues thus far. The one thing I did want to follow up on was we concluded our fiscal year June 30th, finished paying any outstanding bills at the end of July. All areas are under budget. Some subcategories are slightly over. There are only two. One is the buildings and grounds at 107%. Why is it over? We bought some LED lights for the town hall that we charged to that line that'll over time pay for themselves, 3 or 4 years. The other one is solid waste. That's just over at 100.47%. We had one last invoice for hauling that put us over, but the reason we're over is back in April, after the warrant was signed, we received a bill for disposal of the ground pressure-treated wood that we had up there that pushed us over. So we're gonna have to look at how we're gonna address that through this year, because we couldn't fold it into the budget, and how we might look at that going forward. But really happy and proud of the way the various departments handled that. We did a number of late in the year purchases to get some things done without impacting this budget, and I think that's in the best interest of the town, and some of those numbers reflect that there. Pending any questions, that's a financial report.
So entertain a motion for the financial report for this year.
Make the motion that we accept the financial report as presented.
A second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion. That, the start off of this year in the financials, any discussion?
Just a quick question on the disposal of the pressure-treated wood.
Mhm.
Can you explain that? It can't be in the open, it has to be contained?
No, so what we do is we grind it up. We have a company that goes up and grinds pressure-treated construction debris and the brush. The brush is a moneymaker for the guy that grinds it, because he can sell that. The other two items have to be disposed of. The pressure-treated, we take that up to Norwich Walk, and that was they're charging a lot more to dispose of that now. And we couldn't account for that when we put the budget together, but we'll figure out how to meet that challenge. It's not unmeetable, it's just we just gotta figure out how to do that. But that's what that is. Does that answer your question, John?
Yeah, absolutely, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, roll call.
John DeSantis.
Yes.
Stan Tetman.
Yes.
Steve Robinson.
Yes.
Mary Ann Hawks.
Yes.
Lisa Alby.
Yes.
By a vote of 5-0, you have approved the financial reports as presented.
Okay, the next item is on page 29 in our packet. It is the RSU 16 assessment.
What you see in there, that's what people voted down, but it was approved at the last district budget validation meeting. So that's what we have to incorporate in our tax assessment, which we'll talk about later.
So there's nothing here for us to approve.
It's just information.
It's informational.
Yep.
So I just wanted to kind of highlight that. I know that at that district meeting, Stan got up and spoke about the school budget, as did I. Stan, do you want to make any comments?
Just tell them, I honestly don't know if the budget in and of itself is a proper number or not. By no means am I opposed to paying for education for the students. My wife was a speech therapist in the Lewiston school system in Gardner for 34 years, and so I got to learn a lot more about education and budgets than I probably wanted to know. My concern for us is that we've got like 47% of the students, we're paying like 64% of the budget, and I had asked the school board to make a commitment that they would open up the formula for discussion, and that they would make some kind of a change, and I'm still not exactly sure why they wouldn't, but a few years ago, it was brought up to be opened up for discussion, and the school board voted down to even bring it up. And so that's where my big problem is. And I understand, about property assessments, that we're fortunate in the town of Poland that we've got all the lakes and ponds that we have, and that's why our property is worth a lot more money, but we don't have the number of students, to support, in my opinion, the way the formula is set up. It's set up 90% assessment and 10% for students now. I have no idea, should it be 75, 25, 80, 20, and it's going to impact the other two communities. But I think something's got to be done to alleviate, the burden on Poland taxpayers. And in Poland, a lot of the property owners on the lakes are either people from out of town, you know, they don't live here. A lot of us that are on the lake don't have children in school, and that's not to say we shouldn't be paying our share for educating students. And a lot of the people in town, even though they have property that's that somebody says is worth a lot of money, they don't have the incomes to be able to support the tax burden that's being placed on them. And if it came to buying their home now, and I'll use my own case, if somebody told me my home is worth what it is, and that I was going to buy it now, I'd say, no, I wouldn't be able to afford it. When I bought the home, and we rebuilt our home, I'll put that out front for everybody, you know, we could afford what we were building. But now somebody's telling me our property is worth probably 3 times what it was, of what we paid for it. I wouldn't be in there now if that's what the price was. And I don't know how the adjustment really should work. I think a big problem, Betty Ann, if she gets in there, is the state has to do something in the way property taxes are assessed. I think just because values keep going up, unfortunately the rate of the property value increase is not keeping pace with anybody's income, very few people's income, and they've got to find some other way of doing something.
Yeah.
That was it.
So, yeah, and I know you brought that up, and Steve, you brought up something at the board too. You know, doing a baseline of a $100,000 assessment at the low end sounds good on paper, but in reality, like we discussed a couple meetings ago, we need to find out how many houses are actually $100,000, how many houses are $200,000. I think people want to pay their taxes if it's fair, but to assess it low to make it sound like it's not going to be that high is not. It's not transparent at all.
I would disagree. The $100,000 amount is a amount that can be scaled up to whatever your assessed value is. It's easy. If you're 350, 3.5, you know, that's why it's there. It's not meant to create a
Deception.
deceive anybody. It's, hey, it's something easy and you can do it, most people without a calculator.
So it's not deception, it's perception. The public is not, that's not how it's perceived by the public or the residents of Poland. And right, unless you do your research and you dig deep, the perception is that we have a bunch of houses in Maine that are assessed at $100,000, so we're going to go and it's going to be on $100,000 per 100,000. So when you say per 100,000, that takes it to the reality of, wait a minute, my house is $400,000. That's how much I'm going to be paying in taxes. So a couple of things. I agree with there has to be a different formula. It has to be fair to all towns, not just have one town pay the bulk of, has the residents pay the bulk. And obviously, our economy, this timing is, unfortunate. And the other thing is the assessment. So we got two things going. We got, how do we figure out how the towns pay their fair share together as a whole? And also how we assess our homes. So that's the public perception, and I'm speaking on behalf of the public, that's what's out there right now. So, we really need to really look at these things other than from the surface or what we want and what's best for everybody. I think schools, the residents, we have a lot of elderly in our town that are scared right now. And it's sad because education is important. Our teachers are important. But how do we get here? How do we get here? We need to be a lot more transparent on, it's like our house, right? Our budget at our house, that's how it needs to be, just like that.
And they are working that way.
Yeah.
I've been attending the school board meetings, and Amy Hediger is a wonderful person,
Yeah, she
and
is.
she is very transparent. when they discuss the budgets and how they've come to the dollar amounts they have, they're very open about it. They've been very open about the positions that have been cut. When I read the assessment of, you pay $197,000 for a $100,000 house, for me, that was very clear that my house is more than that, so I times that by the 100, whatever. So I found that to be very easy to understand. When the formula was first set up back in, I think it was like 2002 or something like that, it was based 100% on student count. And then, I don't know, because I wasn't here in 2002, after, I think the first year, it changed to so much percent being the valuation or assessment, and so much for the head count. And then after that, it moved to 90% assessment and then 10% students. So I don't know who agreed on that. Well, I can look at the signatures. I don't know why that formula was done that way, so that it evolved over time. But I wouldn't see why it wouldn't be doable to have it go back if that's what the people would like. The other thing I would think we need to keep in mind is that, unfortunately, right now, this is turning into an us against them. And our school board is discouraged. They're really discouraged. They were tasked with going back to bring the tax impact to less than 200,000, which is what they did, and it still got voted down. So
It's
that,
not $200.
excuse me, $200, you're right, $200.
Per 100,000.
Yes, per $100,000. And so they were very discouraged because they did what they were tasked to do. So now they're at a loss as to, okay, so what else? What else do they want from us? Yeah, everybody wants lower taxes, but the cost to run schools, the cost for programs, the cost for supplies, it's not what it was 5 years ago. Everything's gone up, as we well know. And we do need to keep in mind that our children absolutely are our future. And if we don't invest in them, as far as the world market or our kids being able to go out and, get competitive jobs, we have to invest in them. When the RSUs and the MSUs were all set up across the state, the basic philosophy, and I think of things kind of basically, if you would, the basic philosophy was joining towns together so that all the children could benefit from the same resources, so that you didn't have some towns that were very poor that couldn't afford to give their kids the same advantages as richer towns. So that was the philosophy behind the RSUs and the MSUs.
I mean, I hear what everybody's saying. Yes, absolutely. The process for the percent to change, I just want to be clear about what the RSU 16 adopted share formula is. It's an adopted share formula that kicks in after the state says this is your EPS,
Right.
essential programming services, or
Yes.
whatever that
Yeah.
stands for,
Yeah.
which is done 100% on evaluation.
Right.
Okay? So our assessment and doing the things. So I want to be very clear that we will never have the same rate for every student that comes from Poland as the other two communities in RSU 16.
Right.
Because that part of it's not going to change. The budget, just to throw a general number out, the new budget that just got rejected the second time is $28 million, just to use a round figure. 21 million of that is the EPS from the state. So when we're talking about this formula, we're talking about roughly the 7 million. Actually, when I look at this sheet that was in our packet, it actually totals up to like 6 million, or whatever. That is the portion that we're talking about, that the formula kicks in against, the currently 90% evaluation, 10% student. Personally, I'm an advocate to say it ought to be student-based 100%. Because the reality is they have a 15-member school board, 5 members from each town. And even though when they allow the votes to get to the school board, which not all of them do, it's a weighted vote at the school board based upon the percent paid is how the vote's supposed to do. So there's 15 people voting, but the 5 people from Poland have a greater weight that equals the 64% when it comes to the actual math calculation, if it comes to that. So in theory, the reality is if all 5 people voted one way from Poland, it wouldn't matter how the other 10 people voted, because it's against the weighted. So, but the point is that they kind of all speak, and fairly so, that what we do for programming, for student, for extracurricular, and all the things that are on beyond the EPS, I think it should be student-based because they're fundamentally all speaking for and affecting all of the students. And I really think that that's how the formula should be changed to. So is it going to change us to be only paying 46% because we're at 46% of the student count in the district? The answer is no. That's never going to happen. Would we go from 64? I don't know what the math would be, but if we're going to go from 64 to 57, maybe, you know? But that's how I think the realities of the situation is. And that's the portion that our formula can affect, is only that
Right.
6 or 7 million, okay? So I just want to make sure that everybody's real clear about that part of it. The process is the school board has to adopt, they want to open it up and do. They adopt it, they establish what they want to present, and then it has to be ratified by all the citizens of the 3 communities. And that's it. The state isn't involved. The only thing the state will do is say, yes, you followed the right process.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what we're asking the school board to do. I heard somebody on TV representing the school board say, well, it hasn't been formally requested. So for me this evening coming in, I want to know, do we want to formally request that as a select board to the school board?
To change the formula?
To change the sharing formula for that portion of the budget and actually formally do it, because they spoke on TV during an interview with the budget process that nobody's formally requested the change, even though they'd heard there's a lot of conversation about it. So I'd like to suggest that we do that and actually send them a letter formally requesting them to take up on a future agenda the sharing formula and announce when that's going to be to all 3 communities, so that we can go and speak and make our point to why we think this ought to be whatever we think it ought to be.
Right.
My other question is, as, you know, when I go back for the next school board meeting, so their big question is, we don't know what the people of Poland want. So, because they did bring it down, the less than $200 per 100,000 assessment. So I don't, you know, how do we answer that?
Lisa,
So-
can I just ask, where did they get that from? The $200, because nobody put that
Yeah.
out here.
No.
That didn't come from
We
any
didn't
of us.
suggest that came from them.
That came from them.
This came up in one of the budget committee meetings with
Yeah.
RSU, and I think
It was,
because there was no number, I think I wouldn't say arbitrary, but I think that there was some conversation internally, and in talking with the directors, you know, they were shooting for that. So that's something that came up internally.
okay.
So
Yeah, they
so
act-
we went, the first
To
budget.
say, like, what do we think we could reasonably get it down to?
Okay.
And they felt confident that they could shave it down, and the goal was to get it below the 200. And they presented it to the budget committee, for like, if that's the best that you can do, I think that's the minimum, because we were hitting numbers like 204, 207, and we were all in agreement that that just wasn't gonna meet the needs of the community. And so getting it below 200 was like the absolute, like, you have to do at least that. And I think obviously we all were trying to advocate for more, but that would have required cutting additional teacher positions, and I think the admin team wasn't comfortable with making that call at that time. And no one wanted to do that. They were the budget committee was still trying to save positions that were on the cut list, like the technical director, and there were a lot of letters pouring in trying to advocate for the librarian and some of the other positions that were on the list to get cut.
So, a couple of things.
So kind of both.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
No, it's okay, yeah, so, I mean, I know that's not like a clear, super clear answer, but it did kind of evolve when it was based on recommendations from the admin team at that time.
No, that's good information.
And you to discuss with the budget committee, and that's what was decided.
So a couple of things I want to clarify. It's not the people, it's not a people against the budget, it's people against the taxes. Unfortunately, some of the school board members have misspoke and said that it's the will of the, not the will of the people that comes first, it's the will of the board. So when you start saying stuff like that, you kind of, I was there at that meeting, you know. So I think the best thing we do is leave feelings out of it, stick to the facts. The residents don't want to pay higher taxes. So
Yeah, I mean,
so how do we get to that, right?
Right.
That's the main thing, they don't want to pay high taxes.
We're going to talk at tax commitment here later this evening.
Yeah.
And so we'll see where the rubber hits the road. I do feel, and it made the point to the directors before, they never have to set a tax commitment. They never have to vote for that. So I don't think they necessarily always absorb what it is that they're asking for.
Okay.
I think this coming down and them shooting for less than 200, it was 197. The first budget was 247. So we're talking about the dollar impact per 100,000 for Poland.
Correct.
There's other numbers for mine at
Yes.
Mechanic Falls, like $128, I
And
think.
157.
Yeah, $157, whatever. But that, I think that's an important point. The point that I want to would raise to the school board, and by the way, they have invited myself and Mary Ann and Matt to a meeting on the 13th of August and along with Minot and Mechanic Falls, representatives of their council and school board and, select boards, to have a discussion with them to where that line needs to be. So I think that's a positive thing, and
Yeah.
we'll let that generate itself to the point. But one of the things that is personal disappointment of mine is, though it's accurate to say, like they've said, the reality is that, the town evaluations went up, so the 3 towns can afford to pay $700,000 more this year than last year, because the state's given us $700,000 less. That's an accurate thing to say, but the reality is what they're not accurately saying is that the formula is not just evaluations of the communities at the state level. It also has to do with the student count of your district. And what's happening with the student count with the district that I mentioned during the district meeting up there is that we were at a high for the district 3 years ago of 1,720 students. The count for number of students this coming year is going to be 1,575. That's 150 less students. And if you look at it, the evaluation that was given to the district last year, the district went down 3% of students, and the reality is that it was 3% less last year that was given from the state. From last year to this year, it's a 5% drop in students, and it's a 5% drop in the amount of money we're getting from the state. What I don't see willing, and needs to be a topic at the school board, and I'll bring it up on the 13th, and I would say it, I'm saying it live now, is there needs to be a real discussion by that school board to why is the population of the schools dropping? Why are the residents of Poland, Minot, and Mechanic Falls not attending RSU 16? It's not because our populations are dropping in our communities. Okay, so it's not just the slight fluctuation. We've lost 9% from the high number 2 years ago. Okay, that's a large amount. And if you look at the thing, so we're kind of saying, well, we all should be able to afford more is their thing. But I just feel like we're sitting here accepting to be victims as opposed to taking control of trying to understand why.
Right.
And I don't really feel that the school board really understands that. They just get told a number and it's dropping, and that's why your tax is going up. It isn't because our budget went up 5%. It was 7% now, and it's 5% with the new budget. Year on year, the budget went up 5%. The reality is our taxes are going up that much more because we're getting less state funding. And that's where the 197 comes into play and all of this type of stuff. So it is a double factor in reality to the taxpayer,
Right.
okay? But, I just feel like we're just not necessarily, the school board is not really tackling on and accepting the issues that are in front of them, and they're just letting themselves be victims, and then just sit back and say, well, we can't do the things and we're being the victims. The other thing I did for some research, and I presented it again at the district-wide meeting, so the state pays 46% of our school budget. That $28 million budget, the state pays 46% of it, okay? The state funds all of the district in total dollars in all the districts at the 55% level, okay? But we're getting 46%. The reality is that every community is seeing their evaluations grow. It's not like Poland's evaluation is increasing, or Minot or Mechanic Falls is increasing at any different rate than anybody else. So we sit here saying, well, it's because our evaluations went up. Well, wait a minute. It has to be other relative things, which is, i.e. student count, okay? And it's student count, and it's student count. I'll repeat it 3 times, because I did the homework, and it was actually in the newspaper, and doing the things that Lewiston has, their school budget is paid by 72% state, 28% by the taxpayers of the Lewiston. Okay? That's because they have such an influx of people into their community and whatever, and that brings them sets of challenges and whatever. So my point is that that's the reality of why Poland's getting less, because they're taking the same dollar amount at the state level and divvying it. And because everybody's evaluations all go relativity, it's all about student count, and so more is going to Lewiston and other communities than is coming into Poland because our student count is dropping. That's a reality that I don't think the school board has sunk in, and is the reality of why we're getting less. It is what it is. It's not like we're going to be able to change it this year, okay? But I think they have to be willing to accept what the reality is and say, okay, what are we going to talk about as a school board to change those realities and not be victims of it. So I mean, they're paying 20, and by the way, Lewiston rejected their school budget because they didn't like the tax impact, and they're paying 28%.
Yeah.
So, Oxford Hills has rejected it. There's been lots of communities out there rejecting their school budgets because of what it is. So it's not a Poland-only problem. It's a problem that we have to resolve and educate our kids. And so I hope that we can come up with something that's viable. But, they're raising the thing $1.4 million. Just to be clear about that, salaries are $1 million of it. Okay? With the existing teacher things and all of their things, salaries was $1 million. And we did a huge adjustment 3 or 4 years ago to try to get the salaries of the teachers in the district to level. They signed a 3-year contract saying 5% a year for 3 years increase. We're giving our townspeople 3% or 3.2% because that's the COLA. So, you've got a contract that's above COLA. And so that's things that I think when they come down as a school board and negotiating, if you're in line now and you don't need to be playing catch up, you've got to be in line with things that you don't create contracts that exceed what the COLA is that has any potential for people to pay to keep up with it. So, I mean, I can go on and on, and I don't want to go on any further, but I just wanted to raise that. And just to put against the tax bill this evening, just to be clear about it, when you open your tax bill as a resident of Poland, 62.4% of that is for the schools. 29% is for the municipality, and over 8% is for the county. So that's how it all breaks down as far as to the taxpayer.
May I ask a question? Only because I'm hearing some at the doors, a lot of people are choosing to homeschool. When you look at those numbers, are you saying your actual population of students is going down, or is that the number of students who are choosing to attend public school?
Is dropping.
Are you
The
finding
number of
that,
students that are choosing to attend the district is dropping.
are you finding that you're getting more and more homeschoolers, and is that affecting your budget?
I think that is the reality of it, but that's the point I'm trying to make, is that the school board needs to be taking that on and understanding that reality and understanding why are they making those choices, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's
Yeah,
the
this did
reality.
come up and this was asked at a budget committee meeting. We asked the superintendent to explain why the drop in student population, and a lot of it was homeschooling. It was also, 16, 17-year-olds dropping out of school, going into the adult education. So that actually, if they go into adult education, that's not considered part of the general, K through 12. And there was an initiative at one point, Todd personally, I think, was calling families to better understand their situation, to see, if it is it, and I guess these were just really, people who had made up their minds that they just were not sending for whatever reason. And it was a wide range of reasons, but there were reasons. So there was no chance of, getting them back in.
Thank you.
That's a good question.
Yeah, so again, I just think that that's part of what, sign up for the things, sign up to try to understand these things and take actions to curb that is going to help the school in itself carry on its longevity and be supported by the rest of the taxpayers of all the three communities, so.
Again, perception.
I did want to ask, is it possible, I know that Amy had initially asked for the chair, vice chair from every select board, but can Lisa join us, Matt, since she is liaison, and just so she can stay in the loop?
That you just show up, I don't think they're gonna turn anybody away.
Okay.
I would.
That was gonna be my ask as well. I want her to stay, I don't want her
Oh, yeah.
to not hear things
I don't think they
firsthand.
turn anybody away.
No.
They're trying to get input, so.
Right, yep, so.
I did hear about the homeschooling piece too, and it has to do with, so many things haven't recovered after COVID, and that was one of them that anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with the COVID thing, but we really need to not beat that dead horse. And reality is that the media doesn't help, and the school boards and the teachers don't help themselves across the board by allowing certain curriculums in school that don't belong. And I think the parents are going to start standing up more and more, and I think the school needs to understand that. We're supposed to understand why they want this budget. They have to understand why parents are pulling their kids out. And the reality is that we need to stop tiptoeing, okay? There is reasons why, and we need to hit those head on, and so the school has a better understanding how they could change the way that they teach, or like they used to teach. Reading, math, English, writing, okay? All this other stuff.
That's not our, that's
And-
not our place to have an opinion.
Right, I don't think that's really.
And so, to correct myself before this gets emotional, the bottom line is that we all need to work together to have a better understanding, like what you said, what is the real reason? It could be a conglomerate of many different things, but if we want to get back to the way things used to be, I think we need to stop bringing up things that are in the past and start moving forward in the future to see what we can do with the schools and the parents. I think parents have a responsibility there too as well, so it's a little bit of both.
Well, that's not gonna happen, because it used to be, and I'll go back to my time in school, which was way before you, we didn't have different therapists that we needed in schools. There were a lot of kids that weren't able to be educated because of certain disabilities, and they were just told, well, you can't come into the public schools. We never had the need that I'm aware of for social workers. We need social workers in school. There's just a whole bunch of services for getting curriculum. There are just a whole bunch of things that schools have been either asked or forced to take on that, in the respect of 50 years ago when I was in school, that there wasn't any need for those services. And now there is a need. And so, so it's not the same. It's not just going back to teaching the basics. I mean, it used to be civics was a course that was a basic course that we taught. That's not really taught anymore. And, so it's a whole bunch of things, so.
Yeah, no, so there's gonna be the meeting, I did wanna make you aware of that.
Thank you.
And ask you to attend.
Yep.
It's at the Elm Street School.
Yep.
At the end, they have a conference room at the end of the Elm Street School.
Okay.
Has its own entrance, and it's at 6:30 on the 13th.
Thank you.
So, I mean, we're not gonna resolve it here, we do need to set the tax rate that we'll move on to, based upon what passed the last district meeting will be the budget that's rolled into this. So, we'll see where the budget goes and do, but I think that there has to be things that, as communities, we work towards and understand, and I think I need to feel like it's understood and that people are working on it. For me personally,
Absolutely.
that's where I'm at, so.
Steve, before you leave the school topic, you had mentioned I need a motion to send a letter formally to change the cost sharing formula.
So we need a motion for that? I make a motion that we send a letter to the RSU 16 board, that we are formally asking them to open up a discussion on the current school formula.
I second.
Sharing? funding?
Sharing formula.
Yeah, funding, sharing funding. Yeah, that
Nope.
formula.
I second that.
Great.
John DeSantis.
Yes.
Stan Tetman.
Yes.
Steve Robinson.
Yes.
Marianne Hawks.
Yes.
Lisa Alvey.
Yes.
With a vote 5-0, you have approved sending a letter to RSU 16 board asking them to look into opening up the cost sharing formula.
So just one final topic, so people know at home that may be listening to this or whatever, the total approved to be raised with the current budget is $15,017,159 amongst the three communities. So that's where that 46% comes in on a $28 million budget, to why it's, where taxation is paying for more than, we're not just paying 45% of the budget, we're paying 55% of the budget as taxpayers in doing. So that's just how it all works out currently. I would agree, maybe there's opportunity to be looking at that more broadly and dealing with the realities of today and not how it was created years ago, so. Okay, with that, we can move on to the excise tax refund request, please, on page 30.
Yep. So this is a request we have in from a resident in town who, after listening to one of our board meetings, so hey, people do watch them, after listening to one of our board meetings, heard that 100% disabled vets are allowed to have their excise excise tax for the motor vehicles relinquished, and they had just made their excise payment to us, and now they're asking for a refund. What I do want to know is, in the letter the person wrote, he is asking for $981.87. However, in the actual registration on the next page, he only paid $931.87. I did write an email, and he did state he did make a mistake. It is the $931.87 that he's looking for a refund of.
So I'll entertain a motion.
So this is
To
a
refund.
rebate of $931.87?
Yep.
I make a motion that we refund this veteran his excise tax of $931.87 that he paid on May 2nd. Can't name, since it's not named.
Yeah, I second that.
Thanks.
Now, if I remember from our last discussion, the veterans have to say every year and provide the proof that they are disabled. This isn't something that carries over to next year, is that correct?
It does carry over to next year. Once they have it, it is on their
Oh.
thing, and so the girls will see it when they pull it up
Oh,
next
so
year.
so
that-
they don't have to remind us? next year?
Correct.
Okay.
It's the new ones coming in, because this is a new law that was passed. It's the
Right.
new ones coming in who are 100% disabled. They have to tell us that they're 100%, and I do hear the girls asking that with
they're
anybody who's getting a veteran plate, has a veteran plate, they're asking them all, are you 100% disabled?
But if they don't have a veteran plate, there's no way of them knowing if somebody's.
To even
a
ask the
veteran.
question.
Correct.
So they
Yeah,
don't even ask the question,
They don't.
even though it can be provided.
right,
But there's a sign.
there is a
Yeah,
sign.
yeah.
So-
Yeah.
So it's a place to sign up.
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
So people do have a certain responsibility to know what's going on. so-
right. John DeSantis,
Yes.
Stan Tetman,
Yes.
Steve Robinson,
Yes.
Mary Ann Hawks,
Yes.
Lisa Elby.
Yes.
With a vote 5-0, you have approved refunding excise in the amount of $931.87 to our resident in town who has requested it.
And about how long will it take them to actually receive?
So the check goes out after you approve the next set of payables, so you will approve the next set on April 20th, and, no, I'm not talking April 20th, I'm gonna say August 20th, and August 21st, the check will be mailed to them, and the
Okay, so-
person does know that, I did email them that
Oh,
information if it
that's-
was
okay.
approved.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
That's great. And, again, do we have any way of knowing what this adds up to when we get done with the year?
Nope, but we don't get anything back from the state for it, so.
Right.
Again, while we have somebody who's running for office, that this is a problem that we had a discussion, we had the discussion a few weeks ago, when somebody else had asked for this rebate?
I don't believe so, but I know that there are a lot of unintended consequences
Yes,
and a lot of.
this was a law that was
mandated.
passed by the current legislature, and, which is nice, these folks should get it back, but it becomes an unfunded mandate on the communities, and we don't know how many other people this may affect. Now we're up to close to $2,000, I think, with the one that we approved last time.
That's just the ones that you guys have approved rebates for. We've processed several more
Right.
at
Yeah,
100% that have
okay,
told
yeah.
us.
So we're already up to a couple of grand, maybe 10 grand, 5 grand, 20 grand.
It may be 10, and at the end of the day, it's 10 grand that we can't account for, and we actually end up rolling to the tax base. I mean,
So
that's the reality of it.
That if they're gonna do this, there should be something that comes back to us.
Yep.
Okay.
And as a veteran, I say thank you very much. But that is not why we served, but for those who are 100% disabled, I think it's a great law, but I do think there should be a way that the state recognizes
Right.
that they've put this upon you.
Next item is on
Betty
page...
Ann, if you're in the background, because I can't see you, but it's Betty Ann.
Sorry,
right?
yes.
Hi. So, yeah, this was one of the unfunded things that I think, you came to my door when we were talking, this is one of the many things we were talking about.
Yep.
But I think as a board, what we had decided to do is wait until this next election cycle, and then we want to put a formal letter together to our representatives so that it can be raised in front of Congress when it's in session next. Because it's frustrating. They could impact their own budget, but they don't think about the repercussions of the impact, to municipalities and then taxpayers.
Yes.
Yeah, they had a $95 million surplus in their budget, but somehow we
Next.
covered that. Next item is on page 33. It's the request for proposal for MSW hauling.
I'd like to put the contract out to haul our municipal solid waste and recycling out to bid again. The current company that's doing that, we haven't been able to get them to give us a new contract. We've been asking for several months now. We need to have that in place. So I'm at my wit's end, and we're ready to go out to bid and get this resolved.
If they're not giving us a contract, what are we paying, just based on the old contract?
Yeah. But I also need a current contract, because, there's an element of fairness here too. We don't want them to not be paid appropriately. There's also, I need that contract to complete my minor permit revision.
Yeah.
And, I'm not sure why this is any business owner would want a contract with a customer. It protects everybody, but, hopefully we'll get this resolved by putting it out to bid.
Take a motion.
Make a motion that we send out to bid waste transportation requests.
I second.
Any questions? John DeSantis?
Yes.
Stan Tetman?
Yes.
Steve Robinson?
Yes.
Mary Ann Hawks?
Yes.
Lisa Albee?
Yes.
With a vote 5-0, you have approved sending out the MSW hauling RFP.
Now for the heavy lifting.
Yeah, so tax commitment, it is that time of year, earlier than last year, so that's the nice thing. At the June 2024 election, voters adopted the fiscal year 25 budget as presented, along with authorizing the board to use up to $575,000 from the unassigned fund balance. The proportion of the tax bill as it works out, county 8.3%, municipal 29.3%, and school 62.4%. We are giving you guys two scenarios. The first one is a mill rate of 17.14, which is an increase of 3.5, and that is using no unassigned fund balance with an overlay of $19,978. The second one is a mill rate of 16.53, an increase of 2.9, using $575,000 of the unassigned fund balance and an overlay of $21,562. We recommend scenario 2. This is an increase of $289 per 100,000 of valuation in this year's tax rate. For those that received the tax stabilization last year, it will be an even larger increase for you guys.
What is an overlay?
The overlay is what we have to set aside for tax errors that
Gotcha.
are committed, abatements and stuff like that.
Okay.
And that is part of our budget that we ask people
Yep.
how much we can set aside, and
Okay.
20,000 was what was voted on.
Okay.
So I would entertain a motion at this point and a second, and then we can continue discussion.
I move that we, oh boy, my first official motion. I
Not a good one.
move that we approve the option number 1 of 17.14 mill rate, the increase of 3.5. And using no unassigned fund balance and an overlay of $19,978.
Is anybody willing to second? Hearing none, I'll move on to a new motion.
Okay. We don't have to vote it down?
Nope, because it
Okay.
wasn't seconded,
Okay,
so it moves on to another
okay.
motion.
I thought we had to vote it
Yeah,
down.
that's why I
Okay,
wanted to specifically ask for the second.
okay. I move that we approve option number 2, the 16.53 mill rate, an increase of 2.9, using $575 of the unassigned fund balance and an overlay of $21,562.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
So I just want to first say the $575,000 unassigned fund balance that we are using is the extra money that fell through from last year's budget that was either we gained extra revenue or we unexpended. So that's where that 575 figure came from. So instead of increasing our fund balance, we're just using what dropped through last year to offset the mill rate this year.
So,
Right.
so
Go ahead.
in this year, in the budget that we just saw, if you looked at the revenues, there was $550,000 in the revenue line that was previous year's carryover. And we are, does that actually get inserted in, or is just that 550 is going to fall through because we?
It is not, there's going to be, I think if I looked right about, can I just see, I'm
It's-
looking here over your
We
shoulder.
haven't, I think that'll be determined when we do the audit, but almost all of that's gonna go through.
Okay. All right. And then we'll have a fall-through number. So what we adopted about 3 years ago, I think it was, during the budget process, in doing this, was that we would return the money to the taxpayers that we collected in excess, beyond the things because we do a good job in maintaining our budget
Right.
and executing our budget. We capture the revenues that we somewhat anticipate to the percent. We're very close there too. And that we should not be just putting it in the bank over and above what the auditors
Right.
think we ought to have sitting in the bank. So that's why that number was created itself.
Okay.
And doesn't put us in jeopardy to having enough on-hand balance if all of a sudden no monies were coming into the town that we
Right.
couldn't operate and operate the town. So that's,
I was gonna say, I think our current fund balance is enough for 60 days.
There's a little more than
Like
60.
70-something,
Oh,
I
we're up to
believe.
70. And the auditors recommend having a minimum of 30. And in past years, they've said we're, in terms of having this fund balance, we're in the best shape of most towns that they audit, and they audit a lot of towns.
And the other thing I wanted to make note of is because we have to set our mill rate so that way we can get tax bills out, we have to use the last adopted school budget number at a district budget meeting. So we do have to use the $9,685,960 as Poland's portion to set the mill rate.
and that's based upon the last rejected
Budget, yeah.
budget. So whatever any future budget may hold and get adopted will be what it is, but this is what it's ran with.
And my
Yeah.
understanding is that we would get a credit in the next school year budget.
Yeah, that if voters ultimately approve a budget that is less than what we assessed, that difference will be applied to the
Yep.
following year's school assessment.
And one of the things, again, Steve, you read off the county municipal and school portions that we're paying, that just want to make sure people understand that almost 71% of taxes that we're approving now, we have absolutely no control over. Well, I'll take that back. We have some control over the school budget because of the way we've been voting. But the county budget, we have no control over. So only 29% of this budget is what we're coming up with a budget for.
So we operate the town too.
Right.
So, I mean, this increase is not due to what we're spending in town.
Right.
And so it's a real small portion of it.
So, the other thing that I always have as a tradition, being here and looking at the numbers, is I pulled up the tax sheet of the year before, because one of the factors that you have to consider is every year our town evaluation does go up because we're building new businesses, new homes, whatever the scenario is. In this tax sheet, how calculated, we're only seeing the difference be slightly under $5 million. So the new number is $876,997,650. So it's about 5 million. I will say that traditionally, we've been in the high, if not in the teens of actual millions year on year, which is basically meaning it increased our tax base so that it keeps the mill rate lower. So obviously, we're trying to promote businesses in our community and doing those things, all of those types of things that come in and build, and we do have some new construction going in down the road here for a new business and the like. That's only going to help the tax base, which then helps everybody across the board. So it's a balance. But it's something that I always try to do and watch. And last year's number, you may remember when we set it, had a nice increase to it because we had adopted raising everybody's evaluation equally, commercial and private residents, to make sure that we stayed up in the funding percent for the state. We did that last year. It raised the number to 872 million in doing that. Probably next year, that's going to be another thing we're going to have to look at. That's our expectation, because we're going to fall below the percent, and we need to keep ourselves up to that until we do a reevaluation of the town, that we've already set a contract to, in 3 years from now it starts?
It'll start tax year 27.
Tax year
27,
27.
that was 28.
So,
27 into 28.
so, I say, just for that background for
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
newer members and whatever, so
Yeah.
it's just, so the next year thing might be, hey, we'll take up the evaluations again, and then just, with the mill rate and that, you're trying to raise a tax dollar amount. It's a combination of the
Right.
two,
Right.
so unfortunately, that's where it is. And so I think that's what fuels some when it comes to
Yeah.
things. The school is just one of those things that some people don't have the confidence in, don't understand it, but it's such a large part of their tax bill, so they exercise their vote regardless of knowing any details. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any other
Any other
questions?
discussion, questions?
I think it's a testimony to the town to keeping a mill rate like that. 18 years ago, I came from a town in Connecticut that the mill rate was 54%. Think about that. So, and I do agree, we need to start bringing in a little bit more business into town, something different that can offset that, so.
John DeSantis,
Yes?
Stanley Tutman,
Yes.
Steve Robinson,
Yes.
Mary Ann Hawks. Good thing I can read lips, Mary Ann. That was a yes for Mary Ann. Lisa Albee.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, you have set the tax commitment rate at 16.53, and we will put that in the system tomorrow and get it all set up and hopefully get bills out within the next week or two to everybody. Remember, please, that we do have the senior tax assistance that is local. It is for anybody who is 70 or older, has lived in town for 10 years, and gets the property tax fairness credit on their income taxes. So if you qualify for all three of those, please come in and see us, get an application, and you can get up to 50% of your property tax fairness credit money back from the town to go towards whatever you want. We send you the check. But
If we qualify for 2, do we get like 2/3 of it?
no.
What does that mean?
So,
All right, moving along to payables.
I make a motion that we pay our bills for the fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $2,326,311.43.
Second?
Roll call.
John DeSantis,
Yes?
Stan Tetman,
Yes.
Steve Robinson,
Yes.
Mary Ann Hawks,
Yes.
Lisa Albee.
Yes.
With a vote 5-0, you have approved the fiscal year 25 payables in the amount $2,326,311.43.
Is this the last one for this year?
For 24, yes?
Okay. I make a motion that we pay our bills for hopefully the final time for the fiscal year 2024, in the amount of $71,920.90.
Second.
John DeSantis.
Yes.
Stan Tetman.
Yes.
Steve Robinson.
Yes.
Mary Ann Hawks.
Yes.
Lisa Albee.
Yes.
With a vote 5-0, you have approved the payables for fiscal year 24 in the amount of $71,920.90.
With that, any other business? John?
There were several emails that I got on the traffic light situation over in Carpenter Road. And a resident was concerned about the speeding going through there. And he was on his motorcycle at a stop. Tractor trailer came blowing past him, almost knocked him off his bike, he said. But I think the speeding going through there is still, especially with trucks. If we got the new light in place, people are stopped, and the tractor trailer's not paying attention, that's gonna be we've already seen enough accidents over there, that's gonna be for a bad accident. And I understand we've had speed control mechanisms, the sheriff's up there, I don't know how we present that, I don't know if the light, I don't know, but I just was concerned citizens wanted me to bring that up, so.
Thought I mentioned that to the sheriff's department.
Well, we've got the radar sign up there, they're aware that there's an issue, so they're there. I'm just not sure what more they can do. Part of, I don't know, we'll have a chat about that.
All right, thank you.
So is it the speed of somebody going through the intersection when they had a green light?
Yes. Yeah. Especially if it's coming from the top of 26
Yeah.
and they see the green light, they're just blowing through. So. Other than that, I live on Carpenter Road and I love it.
It makes it a lot easier to get at this section.
Stan?
Yeah, just two things. One, again, I'm just going to remind folks on my other hats, Poland Spring Preservation Society on Monday nights is putting on concerts up at the gazebo. Unfortunately, last two shows we had to have indoors because the weather didn't agree with us. But we have 3 more concerts goes through August 26th, I think is a Monday. Will be our last concert, so just want to remind folks about that. Oh, yeah, and just to warn folks, make people aware that COVID is still around. And last week, I've got 5 friends who have tested positive. And, you know, have to be careful and be aware and not to get too political about it, but boy, if you're in a dangerous category, you should get vaccinated.
Or stay home.
Or stay home.
Stay home.
It's not something you want to be dealing with, especially for people in my categories. That's it.
Nothing for me.
Nothing for me.
Mary Ann?
No.
Yes. So I had the privilege, I was sitting at the last CEDC meeting where they have adopted a mission statement and elected new officers. It was a very productive meeting. They would like to invite select board, specifically the planning board, as well as you, Matt, and Nikki as town officials, and Scott, to kind of an informal meet and greet over on September 19th at 5:30 at Full Provision. So this is more kind of an informal, internal get-together where they would like to just, you know, talk about the new mission, really just talk about how the departments can synergize, and sounds like there's definitely some common goals. You know, Steve was just mentioning how as the tax base grows, mill rate goes down. So just brainstorming and talking about some of the ideas that they have around attracting new business and people coming in and how we can welcome new members to the community, particularly businesses. So sounds like they were really interested in having that get together. So I was hoping you, Matt, and Nikki could help kind of spread the word, and I'm sure a formal communication will come out from them, but I kind of volunteered. I said we have a select board meeting coming up, so asked them if they wanted me to do anything or say anything, and they asked that I mention that and invite you all to that.
Thank you. Anything else? Matt?
Pardon me, Miriam, are you all done?
I am,
Okay.
yes.
Grange has invited everybody to an event on the 13th at 6 o'clock. They're going to recognize the food bank at the Excelsior Grange. There's going to be a supper provided. Do you know where that is, John?
Yeah, we got that email, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you just let me know by email if you can go, and I'll let the Grange folks know. Those are nice events. That's a real small town Poland event that's really well worth your time. You'll enjoy that.
Just
Did you say,
respond.
is that the same
Yes.
night
It's the
as
same.
they're getting together with the school?
Nope,
Yep.
that's the 13th of August. No, wait a minute, it's 17th.
It's the
Sorry.
17th, the
Yeah, it's
Grange
The
is
Grange
the
is on the 17th?
Yeah.
Thank you for that, because I was just going to
Yeah.
say, sorry.
And then I have one thing that I'll ask him, running for the MMA Executive Committee, and I've got a ballot here. If you want to vote for me, you can sign it. If not, you don't have to sign it. But
MMA, fighting?
Municipal.
Oh. Sorry. It's like, wow,
Me and Dana White are like this.
good for you. Thanks for
And that's all
that
I have.
correction
Thank
there.
Sorry, I forgot to mention one thing. So with Cindy Robbins leaving the CEDC, that does leave one full-time vacancy, correct? I meant to ask Nikki if there were anyone that had applied to that role that I feel like we tabled that discussion at one point because we had more people applying than there were openings. And is there anyone that didn't get a position that we could reach out to see if they're still interested in that?
Yes, we have some new applications coming before us, new appointments coming before us at the next board meeting, and one of them is a CEDC one. So right now, we have one vacancy and 2 alternate vacancies on that board.
Okay, great. And to your knowledge, we haven't missed anyone?
Not to my knowledge.
No, I think there was
Thank
one
you.
applicant that was also a budget committee applicant that had a lot of history and a lot of things on their application that could be very nicely used in the CDC thing, is my memory, but nothing about the position, so. Okay, if that's it, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
No, you're the
So,
first.
you're
I'm the first. I'm the first, yes. I'm tired.
Move to adjourn?
Thanks.
John DeSantos.
Yes.
Stan Tetman. Steve Robinson.
Yes.
Mary Ann Hawks.
Yes.
Lisa Elby.
Yes.
With a vote to 4-0, Stan Tetman has left the
Building.
the seating. We will adjourn the meeting. Have a nice night, everyone.
Take care, Mary Ann.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.